If you could, Rose, if you have the screenshots of this, I would like to see this uncut, because if it is just set up like this, where they're just admitting to the fact that they were stretching the truth or bullshitting about their experience, that's insane. Well, she sent them to me, and I have been approved to show to you guys some of these with, you know, some names and pictures removed so that you can't identify some of the people that haven't been interviewed. But I am now going to be showing you guys some of those in more detail, as well as some DMs that you have not seen. To start things off, this was one of the clips that I'd seen that had been cut apart in the video, and I wanted to see it kind of fully all together. We have contestant 231 talking about the interview that he had done with Oompa, and he is on that video that Oompa has done. And he said, "Bro, they asked me hard questions." Someone else said, "Uh-oh." And another individual said, "Which is?" And he said, like, he was more concerned about the allegations. Another separate contestant said, "And the team gave you the approval. Let me guess, is it Oompaville?" And then someone else had said, "Producers sent him to you? That's odd. Almost like they testing you." For the sake of digesting this, I'm just curious as to what they were testing him for. Like, what is the test here? That he would just blatantly lie for funsies? I don't know that for sure, but I think in defense of that point, we continue on with the messages here. 231 says, "Yeah, I didn't say anything bad." And then different individual says, "I've been wanting to talk to this guy for the longest." He says, "Yeah, I didn't say anything bad about the Beast games." In response, this individual says, "Well, you have to speak honestly from your perspective at the end of the day. The reason why they trust him is because he kind of gave them a window of opportunity to redeem himself." I believe him talking about Oomphaville in regard to Mr. Beast, which is why he's playing hardball. 231, keep in mind, he said, "Yeah, I didn't say anything bad about the Beast games." Continuing, he says, "But like, I had to BS a little bit." I'm assuming that's what he meant here. I can't think of any other cuss word that fits as well here. And to continue that message, we have him responding back, the guy who was talking earlier, "But if I were you, I would also press him, as far as him showing support to Rosanna Pansino." And so again, 231 is responding based off of what this individual had said earlier, which was in regard to speaking from his perspective. And so he says, "Yeah, I said from my perspective, they took care of me." And then the other individual says, "I hope the team lets me talk to him. I definitely will be the one making him talk for sure." So this individual, not a super big fan of Oompa, it doesn't seem like, and definitely seems to be a big supporter of Mr. Beast. Nothing wrong from that. Again, just making an observation. But there's a few other bits of information that we learned from these leaked DMs, like the fact that multiple contestants are fully aware of the issues that were at play that Mr. Beast either minimizes or just downright denies even happened, like people getting trampled. And so this comes from a separate individual who says, "Too many people are still delulu and caught up in this fantasy land that Mr. Beast is some saver that looked down upon us in the stadium, and how all of us contestants should just be best friends with everyone and live in harmony. So we should just have grit and deal with all the bullshit, because a world record is much more for the greater good." If the interviewer interviews someone like this, I'm assuming he means this, no shit, people gonna think like Beast Games is some paradise, while people had seizures, trampled, bruised, starved, denied basic feminine products. 4 people at least had hearted it, done this like little cowboy emoji, and then 231 says, "I agree 100%. So we have, and again, it's based off emoji reactions, but as well as contestant 231, who was interviewed on Oompaville's video, at least 4 people agreeing in regard to the fact that people had seizures, were trampled, bruised, starved. At least these people in a group chat are willing to confirm, like amongst each other, that they're aware that these things were taking place. Additionally, in regard to 231 having that interview with Oompaville, someone had said, "Beast Team gave you the interview though, right? You should be fine then." 231 says, "Yeah, one of the producers sent him my way." Which is interesting that these people are not having those interviews on their own volition. Oompaville, or, you know, other people, I think including Atozy, who's referenced in some of these DMs, are being sent to these specific contestants by the producers, which again, feels like it's just getting in the way of just having an actual interview with someone where there's no conflict of interests. We've already discussed that it's an issue. We're already having an issue with that because they're already telling every contestant, "Hey, make sure you come back for season 2, which incentivizes them to not talk badly. But on top of that, if the producers are directing them to specific contestants, whether it's just because they're a good storyteller or because they're going to say what they want them to say about the Beast games, it could be either of those things. But the fact that there is a potential for it to be staged to some degree is not great. Only what the producers of the Beast games want people to hear about through these interviews, you're muddying the waters. And by those means, you're illegitimizing any any of the interviews that do come out that do have good things to say about the Beast games. It seems like some of these individuals already had good things to say. Why not they just go on their own volition? They can reach out to these individuals, or Oompaville, Atozy, any of these other commentators can reach out to the contestants. But back to the DMs. This contestant starts talking about when they blacked out. They said, "You were by me when I got tackled. OMG, do you remember?" And then someone else talking about, "Do I tell them about the riots?" Not quite sure what those are in reference to. But that person that blacked out gets replied to saying, "Huh?" Someone replies going, "In the case game," like they remember it, it might have been the case game. That same person later says, "Or flags." They can't remember it's one of these two games that they suspect that this contestant could have been tackled or knocked out. Just find it interesting that that brings to mind for them at least two separate games. But continuing on, 231 actually replied to them, "You were the one that got tackled, I remember." And then the person that did get injured said, "I was plastered on the floor, briefcases." 231 said, "I jumped over you. Unless someone else got tackled too, there were a lot." They replied, "I blacked out, LMFAO." 231 responds, "Oh shit, I'm so sorry that happened to you." And then that contestant continues on, "I woke up and everyone was yelling at me to put my hand on my briefcase." Someone else responds, "People got tackled and trampled in Vegas." And then that person who was, tackled and blacked out said, "It was on the floor in front of me. It felt like a movie, OMG." Now I just want to say outright, if you black out from getting tackled, you suffered some sort of concussion. Your brain doesn't just shut off normally. And they're just chatting about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you." Maybe they didn't break a bone. Maybe this this contestant doesn't sound like they broke a bone, but a concussion is pretty bad. And don't you think it's a bit strange that these people haven't really come out to talk about those things? Because there are some people who have come forward about it, but why wouldn't they themselves also come forward with it? I mean, there's a lot surrounding this that would, be beneficial. They'd have a story to tell, and people would, for the most part, be on their side. Like I said earlier, the Beast Games have incentivized that these people don't talk about it so that they get brought back on the show. Some of the contestants even say this in the group chat. Whoa, calm down, buddy. So Rose here is asking about what they can and can't talk about in the interviews. And then somebody else responded to her question, "I wouldn't say anything you wouldn't say to Mr. Beast himself." And then another individual, "I would ask the Beast team to see what they tell you." But I think one of the most significant messages comes at the very bottom here, where somebody else said, "He always brings people back. Don't want to burn that bridge." So number one, this "I wouldn't say anything you wouldn't say to Mr. Beast himself," that's terrible advice. If you had a bad experience and, typically you wouldn't say something like that to the guy himself because you'd feel bad and you're throwing away the opportunity to potentially come back on season 2, of course you wouldn't say that to him. You wouldn't say anything where the guy wouldn't like you. There's a huge power dynamic there. That's a really stupid piece of advice, unless, the goal is to not share your experience or how you felt about it personally, and it's more about setting yourself up for being in the good graces of Jimmy Beast. Even somebody else saying, "I would ask the Beast team to see what they tell you." That's crazy. That's not your opinion. You're just asking them to say something on their behalf. Editor Connor here. I did realize that while I was talking about this when I had first recorded this specific line about "I would ask the Beast team to see what they tell you," I was pretty amped up about it. And honestly, I just want to keep it a bit more balanced on realistically what this could mean. I think it could boil down to the assumption I had made first, where just trusting that the Beast team is going to tell them what to talk about. But I also recognize that this could just also be a check-in with the Beast team about what you're not able to talk about in regards to potentially some behind the scenes stuff, as that's what someone else refers to and what someone else suggests to not do. So I did just want to say that because I noticed I was getting pretty amped, and I want, again, to just try to be a bit more unbiased, although it's clearly showing in the video. But yeah, back to it. But just to bring that home, someone says he always brings people back, don't want to burn that bridge. We clearly see that, at least for that contestant specifically, the truth matters less to them than their ability to have a connection with Mr. Beast and the Mr. Beast company. I feel like there were a lot of people that were kind of just saying people are only going to complain for their own interest. And other interviews that we've seen, other contestants that have made videos and spoken out were like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. This is a direct example in conjunction with the emails they were sent about what content to post, it being positive will get you a faster approval, etc. All of these points come together to point at the fact that it's not as easy as haters are gonna hate and, you know, the regular people are fine. The regular people that have talked kindly about the Beast games have multiple reasons to say good things, even if that wasn't their actual experience. They have incentives that were built in by how they were treated, you know, when they were eliminated, saying, hey, come back for season 2, as well as the fact that if they are good and they said that they had good experiences, there's a higher chance with how the Beast Games company has it set up that they're gonna have an interview and have a bit of spotlight. At the end of the day, these contestants are in a game show. They need attention. If they plan to make a career out of what they're doing, then they are gonna shut up because they don't want these bridges burned and they don't want to say something bad and have themselves get blacklisted from any other sort of competition live show. And just to confirm, I'm not saying that that is absolutely what is happening here. There is so much nuance to everything. I am the nuance guy. There's nuance. But I am saying that I've seen a lot of this kind of like dismissal from Mr. Beast, and in conjunction with the sloppiness that, you know, this entire situation with Mr. Beast was treated, it's been pretty easy to dismiss some other stuff that didn't hold up to actual scrutiny. But I do think what is being shared here is ample evidence to support that it isn't as clear cut as, you know, how Jimmy is making it out to be, that haters are just gonna hate. There are very valid reasons, as we've seen from these contestants talking about it, as to why these contestants would lie. The last bit that I want to showcase is in reference to someone saying, do I tell him about the riots? And they're referring to their interview, I believe, with Oompa or Atozi. I believe it's Oompa. Now, I wasn't for sure able to confirm what the riots was in regard to. Rosen even asked if it was in reference to like people trying to get their jerseys, or just in some of the games how people would kind of get into these like riots where they'd start tackling each other, things like that. So I'm not 100% sure what they're referring to, but a separate contestant did know what they were talking about. He says, personally, no, but that's up to you if that's something you want to share, by all means. But I'm telling you, after you say this, know that people will look for who it is that made that claim, so just be careful with that. Now, I don't know specifically if he's referring to the public hearing about that, you know, through Oompa's YouTube video, or if he's referring to people that are a part of the Mr. Beast company. That could truly go either way. But the fact is that this other contestant is saying, hey, I wouldn't talk about what you experienced or what you saw, like the riots, because people might come after you. Again, another valid reason why people would not come forward with the entire experience that they had. And I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are about these messages from these contestants. Let me know in the comments.